Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. It is great to see you on this incredibly hot evening for you, is it? Or are you feeling okay? This part of the country, we are having a heat wave. But weirdly, it does feel okay. And it certainly feels good to be here and about to start. Did I say happy Friday? Did I say that? Or did I? Hopefully, I didn't. It's Sunday. um, wacky times, crazy busy times. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. Please tell me if you can hear my fan going, because I think I've created enough comfort in this room that I could turn it off or lower it for a little while. So if you hear it in the background, like droning, you have to tell me, because I don't want a bad video. I want a good video tonight because we have a great program tonight. And tonight is going to be one of these rare nights that I would like to do more often, where we talk about one of our sister crafts. Not exactly needlework or cross stitch or needlepoint or different kinds of rug making, but quilting. And the reason I want to talk more about quilting in the near future, the reason is because the next issue of Magpie Times, the autumn issue, is going to be, the theme is barn quilts, which doesn't just mean barn quilts, it's just a segue, you know. It means quilts and hooked rugs, of course, emphasis on hooked rugs. But if you're also a quilter and you've done some beautiful quilts, it doesn't matter if they're piece quilts or applique or whatever, and you would like to put some into the gallery, particularly if they're autumn themed, we would love to see them. If you have a feature article in you and you're thinking, oh, I did that project, I wonder if that would make a good article, you have until August 1st, right? That's tons of time. Please let us know, because we are definitely looking for content for the quilt issue of Magpie Times. And you know what? If we have too much content, then it'll be an extra large magazine. And we love that too. Let me start by saying hello to everybody. I can see my volume is up. Thank you so much. We just got home from the grocery store. It was like a mad dash. So thank you. I needed my printout for tonight of our content. Catherine, great to see you. Happy weekend. Second day of summer. Is it the second day of summer? Yesterday was I missed that. I don't know how I missed that, but I did miss that. Melissa, great to see you. I love the dandelion wine. I know you're going to really enjoy sitting and reading that. Doris, great to see you. And fellow rug hookers, yeah, you made it on time. Well, I'm the one who's on a weird day this weekend. And you know, I always feel like I have to tell you what I was up to that caused chaos. And what I was up to was, if you're friends with me on Facebook, you probably saw, but one of Teddy's good friends, Isaiah, moved to Florida about 3 years ago, and they are super good friends still over the phone, but they haven't seen each other for about 3 years. So I went to do my thing at the church on Friday. You know how I host a group from about 1 to 3/4 kind of thing, and you are all very welcome to come if you're ever in the Hartford area. It was really great this week. It was extra great. There was 3 new people who came, and they're people I know from the services. Shay came. She's a rug hooker. You've seen me with her around here. She's a new rug hooker. She's in the Nutmeg Guild. And then a couple of the ladies from the church came. One of them brought her origami, and man, did that look crazy making it impossible, and it was. And another lady doesn't do crafts. She just brought her coffee, and she was there to talk. So it was just a great opportunity to talk about all kinds of things. We were talking about ghosts, and we were talking about traveling, and we hit on about 100 different subjects, and it was so great. But then I knew that when I got home, coming through the rush hour traffic, I knew that I had to take Teddy and Jocelyn to see the buddy at the movie theater. We arranged to meet there, and I said, I can't pull this event for him because I'm the only driver, right, in this family. So I moved to today, and I'm glad that that works for you too, because it was such a special day for him to be able to see his buddy at the movie theater. They went to see that How to Train a Dragon. They said it was great, but every time they come out of a movie, they say it was the best movie they've ever seen. Short-term memories on kids, you know. Um, but it was such a nice night. So I thought I'll push this back. Also, I was just so busy. I didn't have time to put content together yet. So this works for me this week. And as I've said before, through the summer, just kind of check the Facebook page, Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club. I'll tell you if there's something going on that deviates from our schedule, or if I add an extra date, which I will do a lot of this summer. And also, if you are a subscriber, you will get messages from me. I make posts that are just text with a photograph, and you will get those from me that will say, we're doing this on Sunday, just so you don't get all ramped up and then I'm not there. So Forewarned is forearmed, right? Um, oh, Myra, great to see you. I bet it is hot in Virginia. I hope you are doing okay. It is hot, hot. Like, I mean, it's not the hottest ever, right? It's like I think it was maybe 95 in Connecticut. It's very humid here, and I know you all know that that's the killer. Um, because just now I went outside. We went to the grocery store, and it was like really, really hot. But the sun was not like beating on me, so I didn't feel quite so miserable as I typically would at that temperature. It's nice how it cools off in the evening. I think we'll have to take Buttons for a W. I'm not going to say the word because he'll come running after the show because it should be walkable a little bit later on. Linda, cheers, my dears in New Jersey. Cheers, my dears. Let me get my blue. This is just the water with the blue squirt stuff in it. It's like the citrus blue or something. It's really not good. The water flavor thing. I love those things. Mm. I definitely didn't put enough in. Judy, great to see you. Looking forward to this and just happened to catch it. Fantastic. So happy to see you. Cheryl, so happy to see you. Cheers, my dears. You are enjoying an iced coffee after grilling. Oh, that's so Cape Coddy. Love the breeze on the sunny Cape. Oh, I can imagine how nice it is out there right now. One of my friends left for a sandwich this morning, and he'll be there for a few days with his son at they have a little cabin there. Um, so nice. I went into Barnes and Noble the other day after I dropped the kids at the movie just to see what books were new. And there is a book out called Sandwich. I haven't read it yet. I think I'm going to listen to it on audiobook just because of time. But it's set on the town of Sandwich on Cape Cod, which is like my second favorite Cape town, which means my second favorite town in the world. And it said on the cover of the book that it was like considered like the best novel of the year. So I thought it seems like a family drama kind of thing, but not too upsetting. Yeah, it sounded really good. I think I'm gonna spend time with that. And Doris, oops, I was so excited I forgot to mention I'm joining you all from Missouri. Fantastic. Oh, I hope it's not too warm out there. I hope you're good and comfortable. April, you are there. Hello from hot and steamy Illinois. It's the whole country, isn't it? Sounds like the whole thing. I can hear, but it's the fan. Okay. I might turn it down a notch. Um, okay. As long as you can hear me clearly, I'll lean forward a little bit too. We'll see how it goes. Becky, good evening. Glad to be here and enjoy the nice and air conditioned. Oh, you are lucky. Thank goodness, right? Absolutely. We are not air conditioned. It is rough. Karen, great to see you enjoying a margarita in warm Black Forest, Colorado. The fan is hardly okay. Great, great. If it changes, if it changes for some reason, let me know. Sometimes the fan walks a little bit, so I'm hoping someone will check on me sometime during the show. Rita, great to see you. Howdy. How is it going? I keep thinking it's Friday. I'm going to be very confused after the show. Joe, great to see you. You made it. Woohoo! Looking forward to watching. Oh, I'm so glad. I do have a fun show tonight. Carol, great to see you in Northford. I've been spending my day doing hand piecing. Oh, isn't that great? You love your quilting. That is so great. Now, do you do the paper piecing, or you're just piecing it by hand, just sewing the pieces together? Sounds like a lot of fun. Dave, you were working on a quilted piece, right? I don't think I've seen the quilted piece. Have I seen the quilted piece? Um, Dave, how are you? Blazing hot. Oh no. On the road, heading home from a great weekend. Oh, fantastic. Oh, I'm so glad. Joyce, great to see you. Hello from Pennsylvania. Sounds like you are going to get me restarted on quilting. Well, you know what? Maybe. I keep thinking, I'm going to keep an eye on the thread and I'm going to come close to the mic. I keep thinking, you know, we love our hooking, right? I think most of us would say that's our favorite thing. And sometimes there's only time to do the one thing. But I'll tell you, so we were bidding on a house and we got the house. So I'll tell you all about that another time. I want to have a good full show, but very exciting. Very exciting. And we are going to have a studio space back with the red mantle behind me. Remember the old days? So something for us all to look forward to. A little bit later in the summer, I think. So really exciting. But I've been starting to go through my stuff just here and there because I'm a bit slammed, but starting to go through everything. And I kind of stumbled upon some of my quilt fabric, some of my other crafty rafties, my needle stuff, some of my linens for doing like cross stitch and all of this stuff that I have done in the past. And honestly, some of it I like cross stitch and like petty point stuff like that. I just had to let go of it because I mean I wear like when I'm doing crafts I wear like number 3 glasses, and I can see okay. But if I was doing anything smaller than rug hooking, I don't think I could. I mean, I know there's ways around it. You can get higher prescription, whatever. But it's just like some of those crafts that, for me, that require really fine sight just frustrate me at this point. It's the same thing as reading like old paperbacks, the vintage ones, where the lettering is so small. It just frustrates me. I find myself like, so I haven't done a lot of those crafts for a while. But quilting I do miss because right before I got into rug hooking and I started ribbon candy hooking, I was in 2 quilting guilds in Connecticut, the Seashore, and I think what was the other one, clamshell, something like that. Um, Really fun, right? Really lots of personalities, but really fun. And then I got into hooking, and I got totally swept away. But I do think about the other stuff, and I'm a little bit busy with the business and the magazines and the publishing and all that now, the moving too. But I would say there is something that I think can all agree. There is so much crossover between handcrafts, and I would say particularly between thrift crafts, because quilting, just like rug hooking, is historically a thrift craft. It's all about taking scraps, patchwork, right? Patching, making work that's made of patches, taking the smallest bits of everything, the smallest bits, right? And putting them together into something that is really beautiful. And it evolved along a similar timeline, pieced quilts, and in a similar way, right? Quilting has gone in and out of fashion consistently at the same times as rug hooking and rug making generally has too, because the popularity of these thrift crafts really reflects where the economy is at, and so more social and cultural norms of the day. When everybody is really flush and has plenty of money, 1980s, right? It's not such a big thing. It was more in the 70s. People were getting back into handcrafts, and then we got really carried away again for 20 years with manufactured stuff. And there were exceptions, but we know there were very few rug hookers during that time, and there are still very few rug hookers. But quilting has, I think, more in common as a craft with rug hooking than any other craft I can name, because they are the 2 most obvious thrift crafts. And not only that, is this light going to be hot? No, it's fine. I was thinking, whew, if that thing is going to throw heat in my face, I'm going to pass out. Not only that, but they are not just sister crafts, but I think companion crafts. Because if you think about it, if you've got a beautiful rug by your bed, it's not a bad idea to put a quilt over the bed. Sure, you can put a rug over the bed too, or on the bed, right? Maybe you've got a beautiful quilt on the bed that you made, or pillowcases, shams or something, maybe a bed skirt. People still use bed skirts. I know I do, but I don't know if that's normal. They're just so pretty, right? More color. And I think about that and think, wow, isn't it nice to have like a rug that would match that? So quilting and hooking live together very companionably and amiably. And it's nice to visit this craft because even if you don't feel like quilting or learning quilting or returning to your quilting, it is really a very visible and undeniable trend always in the field of rug hooking that we really pull from quilt patterns. And why do we do that? Well, because they're there, right? The patterns are already there. And not only are the quilt patterns there, and I don't necessarily mean the designs when you're quilting something like all 3 layers together, and you can quilt, with the feather designs or the flower designs or the doodle-dee-doos or whatever. I don't mean necessarily that. I mean the quilt blocks, and that's what we're talking about tonight. The quilt blocks have so much history. They are their own language, aren't they? And there is something so romantic, and for me, I feel very proud of myself in a kind of a way when I see a quilt and I go, oh, I know what block that is. I feel very proud of myself because it's like I speak a language that the other people don't speak. Oh yeah, that quilt. That's about this many years old. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to look at a series of quilt blocks, and I'm going to say to you, multiple choice, what is the name of this block? And no cheating, no cheaty peaties. You might be a quilter and you might already know, or you might just know from being out there in the world and doing antiquing or watching, Antique Roadshow or whatever. You might recognize some of the names and recognize some of those patterns. But at the end of the day, using quilt block patterns, as designs, they transfer so beautifully into rug hooking because many of them are plain geometrics. Many of them are like the Baltimore album quilts, right? We've been doing those like crazy at Ribbon Candy Hooking. When we look at the Caswell carpet squares, those look interchangeable with Baltimore album quilts. The new piece that I have the class coming up, I've been calling it berry baskets, but berry basket, but with the strawberries. Its official name is Pink and Ripe, and it's like a summer basket of berries. That is like a Baltimore album quilt block waiting to happen. So there is so much overlap between our two crafts, and really with Magpie Times, the reason I chose barn quilts or quilts in general as a subject, and you can still put your rug hooking in. Please put tons of rug hooking in as well, right? It's an all fiber arts magazine, and we know it's got a heavy emphasis on hooking, but it'd be nice if in the issues more and more we saw some of the other crafts that you do that are also fiber arts crafts, particularly ones where we can cross over our supplies, right? Why not? So, and certainly quilting and applique, whether it's wool applique or cotton applique or whatever applique, those things are interchangeable too. So many crossroads where we meet and overlap, right? Let me catch up on my hellos. Thank you, April. It is very exciting. I hope that we're able to go soon. It's like, I don't know if we'll go again. We only went the once, and now it's ours. And I really wanted to go and take a video to show you, like, where the studio is going to be and all that stuff. Just, I'm hoping that we can do that in the near future. It is exciting because we've been looking for 2 years, and it's been very, very hard finding something that for Teddy is in the woods. He's got this thing in his head, like so many things there, and he really wanted to be somewhere really remote. And I mean, I do too. And Joss too loves the woods. But then again, I am the only driver in the family, and I wanted to be somewhere where other people could walk places besides just me, and more me, right, running around in the car. So yeah, this was kind of ideal because we found this place on the side of Sweetheart Mountain in my favorite town, Collinsville, and it's like a 14-minute walk into the town. Now the town doesn't have like a grocery store in the center of town or CVS or something, but it does have, for example, just for fun, it's at a bend in the river, like the kayaking and tons of bike trails and hiking trails, a bunch of cute restaurants, a ton of cute shops, lots of galleries, and a very busy historical society. And that appeals to me so much because I'm hoping that I can get in there with the rug hooking and put on some shows and hold some events in the town and get really sort of allied. You should too with yours. Get really allied with the historical society because that can be one of our best connections and best friends. It's at historical societies that I often speak, and you should too. Even if you feel like you're not an absolute expert, I don't feel like I'm an expert either, but I go and speak about the history of rug hooking, and you wouldn't believe how many they're always sold out, like max capacity at historical society. So I'm hoping that that's one that's interested in our hooking as well. Um, it's a fine balance, yeah, with all of the handcrafts that we do. It's true. It's just so many hours in the day thing, but remember, there is exactly enough time for everything that is important. It sounds like a bunch of BS, but it's true. Wait and see, right? Wait and see. It's like sometimes it takes a calamity to happen to realize that that statement is true. Like somebody's sick and you need to be there. I'm thinking about when my father went into hospice and stuff. You know, working full-time grad school, doing all my creative stuff, somehow everything got done. And yeah, it still works like that. That was one of the great lessons of that sad period of time when my dad passed away, that there is exactly enough time for everything that's important. It's just a question of prioritizing, right? Um, yeah, you'll get to all of it if you want to. Ruth, great to see you. You and Richard just started quilting as well as rug hooking. I'm so happy to hear that. Oh, I can't wait to hear more from the two of you. I think in the future we might be seeing some more gallery night entries that are other crafts as well. Why not? right? Inspiration all around. Veronica, thank you so much. Yeah, we are so happy. You know, Joss hasn't seen it yet because she didn't want to come. So I hope that she likes it. I hope it's not like a horrible situation when she sees it. But it's not an old house. Like I was looking at a lot of I was looking at some 16 like late 1600s, 1670s, 70s, 1690s houses, and then some, you know, 18th century houses. Now those were older houses. And well, I love those houses, and I say, what are you talking about? This is not creepy. There's a fireplace in every room. Look at all these little built-in cupboards. There's beehive ovens. There's bread oven. What, you know, what's creepy about this? But she always finds those older houses creepy. I think this is a 1960s house, and I would have never thought I would have gone for that. It's got the most charm of like any of the houses we've seen. And you know that you can't measure charm. You can't put a shape on it. It's just how it makes you feel when you walk through the door. It's like, oh, oh, look at this. It's like you in those moments, like, you know, walking through the door of that house, start to think that other lives are maybe possible, and things that I don't really believe in. I start to think, God, it's so familiar. I feel like I know where everything is before I open the closet. It's like I know this is going to be like an ironing board, and it was that comes down. Like, so cute, you know, so cute. Um, Gayla, great to see you. Welcome back. Michelle, welcome back. Oh, great to see you. And Michelle, you just reminded me, not that I expect you to come visit again for the Halloween party, but I think about our good times there. It makes me so happy thinking about them. I am planning something in Lenox this year. And I'll double check with you tomorrow if anybody's interested in doing the Halloween party this year. Now that I've done one, I kind of know more what to do. We'll have vendors again. We're going to have a lot more space, right? It was not as much space as I wanted at the Red Lion. Catered, maybe a little more food. It was super expensive at the Red Lion, as you can imagine, and I absorbed a ton of it. So I like maxed out what I could do. But I'm looking at the community center in Lenox, which is one town over. So still all the great pumpkin stuff in the evening pumpkin shows, and there's like ghost walks in the evening, and there's lots of museums. It'll be there for you all, and I will let you all know in case anyone feels like traveling. Many of you traveled very, very far. Mandy came from Canada, Michelle came from Texas, Becky came from Indiana. I mean, there was lots of buddies who came, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm planning an even more fun party this year for those of you who are Halloween addicts. Linda, thank you so much. Ruth, thank you so much. Hello, Diane. Great to see you. Yep, we'll see what happens. Still miles away. Boy. So before I start the show, I just want to let you know, and I'm sure you already noticed, I put out a new product. And I hate to do this because I hate to have you here like captive audience and then go, oh, here's what you can spend money on. But this was a really big deal to me. I was trying to come up with a project that could be a possible challenge that involved hit or miss, because I was thinking, you know, you can buy materials from me if you want, and I do have these new grab bags that are like 100% rug wool. Those are all out. That's all in the video that I just posted yesterday. But I had it in my head to experiment with painting on rug hooking linen. This is Door Mill, the white bleached linen. And I did 3 patterns that are now up there, and they are selling. Like, lots of them are selling. Thank you so much. Because I just wasn't sure. Now, I think I have them up for $75, and they're 11 by 14. And I normally would not charge that much for that size pattern. You know, I like to keep things really reasonable. These are taking a lot of time, and I love them. So these are 75, but let me show you what they look like. They're each hand painted with a stencil, and I show all this in the video. This is the bird, and the bird is like of the air, and the background is hit or miss, right? The background is like, now where am I going to put these? The background, the clouds, you can do in hit or miss style or not. Also with these, if you only want to fill in part of it and you want to leave some of the background showing, also possible. Also with these 11 by 14, that's a standard frame. You could go to Kohl's or to TJ or something like that, and you just get a frame, fold the edges, trim the edges, right? Trim the edges, put glue on the, you know, you can glue the edges down on the cardboard or whatever, stitch it if you feel better, pop it into the frame, and you are done. You don't even have to finish them, right? So here's the fish, and the fish is green. That's why he's not getting picked up on the green screen. So the green will go right through. Weird enough, right? Weird enough. That's really weird, isn't it? The fish is with the coral, and then this is the sheep, and the sheep is like of the earth. So the fish is of the water, the bird is of the air, and the sheep is of the earth. So the sheep is standing on like leaves and stuff. Each one will be painted pretty much in these colors. I hope you can see the texture of them is really nice. It's our regular linen, right? It's nothing. It's our regular linen. So if you wanted to rug hook the whole thing, it's colored for you as an idea. You might say, I'd rather have yellow flowers, or I'd rather have a mix. There actually is a ton of yellow and orange in the flowers. I bet those leaves were transparent again. Sorry about that. So I had a lot of fun working on these, and I'm going to do tons of them, and I already have to do tons of them because there's tons of orders, which is so good, because I had like no money in my bank account. So thank you so much. After being away on the Cape, oh my God. So this is really exciting, and I'm loving the idea of creating pieces like this that you can do part of, or you can do all of, or you could do with needlework, right? You could do them with like DMC floss or embroidery floss. You could treat it, you could do applique and stitch right onto them with like wool applique scraps or quilt scraps. I'm thinking of the K facet materials, stitching those down in some of the feels, right? You can hook through it, you can sew on it, you can add beads and bling and whatever you want. And yeah, and that will be one of our challenges. So Wendy, great to see you. Wendy, I'm sending back your thing. I can't believe I still have your Halloween thing. I'll send that back to you. I'm so sorry. I just found 2 buckets of things that I have to return to people. I am the worst. It's great to see you. So yeah, a new beginning in 2 ways, right? So the house thing, and then I got going on this and thinking, I just would love to try. So I started working on those, and so that will be a challenge, right? In other words, for those of you who are getting the painted canvases, these will be the 3 that are like officially for the challenge, right? And I'm just thinking, I wonder how you will finish yours, and send me pictures, because this will go into probably the spring issue of Magpie Time. So the first one for 2020, I can't even say it, 6. Oh God. I'll make an article of however you finished yours. So I'll be curious to see what you all do with those. Now, once I did that, I started, I am getting to content, I promise. I started going through my studio and all that craziness, it's just such a bummer, like doing that kind of work in this heat. And I started thinking quilting. And I put the show together, and I was thinking, how could I combine quilt designs with rug hooking designs? And then I thought, you know what about a wacky, some of the quilt blocks have interesting names, right? To be continued on that. And I thought, what about doing a design that is like, illustrates the name of a quilt block for a rug hooker? So last night at 12:30 a.m., so this morning really, I got this great idea, because my dad loved geese and ducks. And I know this probably, Mandy told me this looks more like a loon, but I was looking at a Canada goose when I did it. But I'm illustrating in the piece I'm about to show you the quilt block that is called Wild Goose Chase. It's a strip, right? It's not necessarily a block, or it's a repeat. We'll look at it during the content tonight, but it's often used as a border or as a strip. And so again, the green is going to be a problem. But so the goose is standing on a green mound. And this is the one that's behind me as well, right? So let me see. The goose is right. Is the goose right there? Yeah, there's the goose right there. So this is Wild Goose Chase. And this is the first of the quilt patterns that I'm going to do. I'm going to do a whole bunch. But that pattern in the sky is called Flying Geese, but this configuration of flying geese is called Wild Goose Chase. So I thought, how perfect if there's like a goose who's looking up at the Wild Goose Chase, right? Like, it makes sense. So I also snuck, I was at church this morning, but we had some downtime, and sometimes I sketch during the service, which is totally acceptable in our church anyway. I came up with more than a couple of ideas for blocks that illustrate quilt blocks. So I've already drawn out Snail Trail, Bear Paw, and a couple of others. So I will be working on those as well, here and there, because again, there is enough time for everything. You have to remind me that in a few days, I think. But Yeah, so all of those things will I will put the Wild Goose Chase. I will put that up tonight or maybe first thing in the morning. But the other three are there for you now. So if you're interested in those, grab them. They'll be there for you, and they're not going to sell out because I hand paint each one, and I get as close as I can. But you know that you will end up with an original piece. And when you frame it, when you finish it, if you frame it 11 by 14, um, I wouldn't put glass on it, right? Particularly if you have fiber stuff, just because even the material is fabric, gases build up, right? So all you need is a frame, pop it right in there, and up it goes on the wall. What's easier than that, right? Alrighty, great. Well, I'm going to keep an eye on the thread, but I want to get started with our fun. Let's see if anyone checks on me, because I could definitely use another squirt in here of the blue stuff. The blue stuff is not even tasty, but at least it tastes, like something fancy. I'm spoiling myself, right, with the squirt stuff in the water. All right, so quilt night. So I have to say I was so pleasantly surprised when I was researching the history of quilt blocks. Now, I have got 2 full bookcases out there that are about the history and names of quilt blocks, and man, do I love looking at those. I look at them in bed often. And there's new quilt blocks that are becoming popular, and like everything else, we're making new quilt blocks that get some traction. People repeat the pattern. For example, Swarm of Bees, right? There's a bunch of new quilt blocks that are out there that are now kind of coming into the lexicon, the quilter's language, like coming into the dictionary. They are well known enough to start being included as one of the traditional quilt blocks. Tonight I'm focused on historically the older traditional blocks, right? So more of a quilting history kind of an angle. And I got most of the content tonight from, believe it or not, the NPS, the National Park Service. So their website is nps.gov. And did they ever have a lot of great content? I know we've pulled from them before, but tonight I'm going to pull heavily from them. So for example, when I pulled up this page, I thought, what's this about? And it says, and I'm going to read you part of what they have there for you at, again, nps.gov, National Park Services. Ask a ranger for the Quilt Discovery Tour companion booklet to take with you as you explore Homestead National Historic Park. Okay, I know where I need to go. And then a little bit of background material. Deeply engaged in a bloody civil war, President Abraham Lincoln did not hesitate when Congress presented him with legislation that would energize a weary nation. When he signed the Homestead Act of 1862, President Lincoln sent a clear message that he believed the Union would and could endure and that it would prosper. As a result, 270 million acres of land owned by the federal government in 30 states was offered for homesteading, thus creating the westward movement, one of the largest migrations of people in our nation's history. I would say so, right? The pioneers spent months, sometimes up to a year, preparing for their trip west. And lots of sad stories here too, right? Men saw to the wagons, animals, weapons, farm equipment, and tools, and the women salted meats and dried fruits and sweet corn, purchased coffee and beans and barrels of sugar and flour. They packed dishes and clothing. Oh, this is really relevant right now. Dishes and clothing, utensils, needles and thread, and they sewed. In fact, a great deal of sewing was done, as travel guides suggested that each family should bring enough bedding so that each man, woman, and child would have 2 to 3 blankets or quilts. That's a lot of sewing falling on one woman, right? While some quilts were packed as treasures in trunks, others were kept close at hand for daily use. They served a variety of purposes, not only on the trip west, but also once the pioneers arrived at their destination, right? Like, what's there when they get there? Nothing. What about the country store? It's not there yet, right? Talk about, I mean, if you lost your needle in a haystack style, how much trouble would you be in? I mean, sewing clothing, sewing curtains, sewing bed covering and quilts. Oh my God, talk about stress. I panic when we forget to pack the conditioner you know, and I know that there's going to be a CVS, you know, wherever we're driving. But I mean, imagine packing the way that these people were packing. Um, Through the years, quilts have become documents of history. They are the products of our society, influenced by the culture and the environment of the people who made them. The history of America can be seen in the history of quilts. Stitched into these quilts is the rich heritage of thrifty, self-sufficient women who helped homestead the land, the history of families sewn into quilts one patch and one stitch at a time, and the legacy of the art of quilting, passed from one generation to the next. Thousands of quilt blocks and patterns have been created and sewn through the decades. The quilt patterns or blocks that are displayed on the quilt trail has anybody done this quilt trail, by the way? On the quilt trail, blocks of quilt trail were in the quilts used by pioneer women as they traveled west and homesteaded the prairie. They also depict other popular patterns used in 1862 in the Homestead Act. Ooh, wait a minute. Battery's running low. Plug is coming out of the wall. There we go. Easy fix. There we go. They depict other popular patterns used in 1862 when the Homestead Act was signed by President Lincoln up until the act was repealed in 1986. Interesting. I guess there's limits to everything, right? Follow the trail to learn more about quilt making and the history of quilts and how they truly are documents of history reflecting who we were as a nation and a people. I love this idea of the quilt blocks for rug hooking. Me too, Judy. I'm so curious to know if anybody has done this quilt trail, because I know I'm not going to have time to do it with Sauter Village coming up and the move and everything. But I wonder if somebody has, and I wonder if somebody has, if you have the time to, somebody watching must have, right? I would love to see an article from Magpie Times on this quilt trail. I mean, that would be such a no-brainer, right, to have something like that as a feature. So a little bit of history and so much more to read, right? But that's just the National Park Service, nps.gov, that gave us that information. So let's dig into our slideshow and come here with me and let's look at the first block. Now, here's where our game begins. I'm going to ask you, what is the name of this block? It's all multiple choice this evening. Do you think that this historic block is called checkerboard, or chess game, or nine patch? What do you think? I'll pause for 1 second to take a sip. Teddy, are you there?
No.
Oh, can you get more of the blue squirt stuff for my drink? Oh, I know there's a delay. Oh, you all are getting it. You all are getting it. 100%. You are right. So you know the nine patch, right? Oh, good job, everybody. Good job. You are all getting it. But you have to throw me a little crumb. What was it? Tricky? Checkerboard? Could have been. Chess game? Was that a little bit tricky? Maybe not. You all knew the nine patch. I try to come up with clever names, so maybe I can trick you. So the game is a little bit more fun. So the nine patch is a popular pattern that was used by pioneer women. The earliest homesteaders had neither time nor fabric to spare. Most of the quilts they made were utility quilts, utilitarian, quickly sewn together for warmth. The nine patch is one of the simplest and quickest quilts to sew. And because it was a good way to use, up every small scrap of fabric available, it was often used. On the prairie, sewing was an essential skill, so young girls learned to sew blocks before they learned to read. At an early age, often as early as 3 or 4, can you imagine? My kids were still trying to figure out how to use a juice box with the straw at that point. Girls were taught to piece simple blocks such as the nine patch. Many were very skilled at piecing a block by age 5. That's amazing. Edith White, who grew up in the mid-1800s, remembered, "Before I was 5 years old, I had pieced one side of a quilt, setting at my mother's knee half an hour a day." The training was called fireside training. Oh my God, I'm going to circle that. I'm going to circle that. You know what that sounds like to me? Where'd I put my damn... where's my pens gone? I had a... Oh, there they are. Let me grab a pen. Hang on. I think we just came up with an idea for a 2026 book project, let's do a book that's called Fireside Training. And it will be hooking or stitching or cross stitching or needle pointing quilt patterns. Wouldn't that be a fun project? Let's do that. I think that's a no-brainer because so much great history here too. Wonder if the National Quilt Museum in Paducah has info about the quilt trail. Ooh, interesting. Oh, it's worth checking, right? Um, I love this idea. Just getting the shivers thinking about this. So and thinking about these blocks. So yes, you are all right. This is a 9 patch, and this is done in like sort of Depression era. I'm sure these are repros, 1930s era prints, right? These would have originally have been feed sack prints, and this is just what a 9 patch looks like. So for those of you who are thinking of your future rug designs, maybe you're sitting there with a pencil and a piece of paper. And oh, Goretti, good to see you. I'm sorry about the scorching evening, but put the fan right near your face, right? Get comfy. Okay, Joe says no. Um, Keep a pencil and a paper near you because we're going to do a few things later that might be fun to do sketching or experiments or give you some ideas, right? So this is the 9 patch done in really contemporary colors, just lots of blocks. Now, sometimes when it's done like this, it's referred to as a postage stamp quilt because or even small, it depends on how large the squares are, but really small squares are sometimes referred to as a postage stamp quilt, and they are often hand done historically, lots of stitches. But how beautiful it looks, such a simple and unassuming historic square, when it's done up, can give you such a wild pop of color, right? Here's another example of the 9 patch, but hang on. What's going on here? It doesn't look like a 9 patch. Well, that's because every other square is a solid block. So it's it's alternating 9 patches with solid blocks. Now, could you do the solid blocks also pieced, right? Just it looks like it's quilted in this example, but not actually pieced. If you're a quilter, you know what I mean. That would be a great idea too. A very sort of quick way if you're doing one-piece patches for the alternates. But this reminds me of our rug hooking patterns where you see alternating blocks. You see log cabin or just straight lines in these hit or miss geometrics, and in the next block, a flower, right? And it's every other block. Same idea here with this one. And another idea for a 9 patch, right? If you've got some 9 patch quilt blocks going, you can see on the left, it's the alternate that we were just describing, right? We've got the 9 patches with the blue and the black, and they are in alternating configuration like a checkerboard, right? And then the lighter ones are north, south, east, west, right? And those are one piece. But over on the right, you can see another idea if you were to try to use the combined 9 patch, so in other words, 9 patches together to make one oversized square, right? And this is something that's very commonly done as well back in the day and still. If you were to put 9 patches together, but you were to do some of them, for example, in a red tone, some of them in a black tone, some of them in a white tone, you can see how you can start really experimenting with what looks like floor tiles, right? Or whatever, however you want to relate to it. But when you leave some blocks out here and there, even though it's still a 9 patch in terms of how you sew it together, you get a completely different pattern, right? Exciting to think about that, right? It makes me want to, and I always do when I'm sketching, I always sketch on grid paper, unless I'm sketching on Post-it notes. Those are the only two things I sketch on, grid paper and Post-it notes. Post-it notes to keep it small so I don't accidentally work too much detail into a rug design because I like to hook more primitive. And grids, just to keep myself honest, right? Where is the middle? Do I want a border? How big will it be? Let's keep it even. Let's not make this into a pig's breakfast. It's very easy to work in grids. And imagine working out a design, whether you plan to quilt it, or you plan to hook it, or punch it, or tuft it, or sew it. Imagine working on something as easy as a 9 patch on just sketching it out on your grid paper. You could probably do 100, if not more, different configurations of dark, light, medium, and that would just be using 3 colors. Imagine if you took out your colored pencils and you did some more colors, how many configurations you could get. What about in the alternating squares? Would it be fun to do a piece that honored both the quilting tradition and the hooking tradition, that was like every other square was a 9-patch hooked, and the alternating square was like one of our geometric straight lines, like a, or like our, the straight lines in a rug hooking pattern like this. Hold on, I'm just going to draw it really quick. Just thought that could be a really cute hooked rug idea. I'm just going to draw it first and then I'll show you. In alternating, I'm just going to make a field of 9. And then what if we did, for example, hold on. There we go. It's probably going to be confusing to look at, but I know you all have good brains. Something like this would be a cool design. That, do you see what I mean? It looks like a hot mess, right? But north, south, east, and west, we've got 9 patches, and the other 5 squares are when we do the rug hooking, either sideways, horizontally, or top to bottom, just hit or miss strips, right? That could be a really cool design. And if you are both a hooker and a quilter, it could be a very meaningful and easy piece to do. That'd be a great piece to punch or to tuft, just because it's a lot faster and there's no tricky parts, right? Interesting. Okay, so let's come back over here to our 9-patch. So for every example of quilt block I'm showing you tonight, I want to show you a bunch of examples just to get you excited. Now, here's the next question for you. Now, I know you probably don't even need me to ask the question, but I'm going to do it anyway. Do you recognize this quilt block? Do you think that this is a log cabin? Do you think this block is called log cabin, or cornerstones, or cellar walls? There we go. You are all very knowledgeable. Yes, it is definitely log cabin. I wonder if there is one called cornerstones, though. I thought cellar walls would be romantic, too. Almost looking at the foundation of a building, God's eye view, you know what I mean, with like all the lines within. But yes, indeed, it is log cabin. And this is, again, like the 9-patch, one of the most, you all are very good, one of the most common and earliest of the patterns, of the quilt block patterns, because, again, the nature of it, lots of scrappy small parts, right? This happens to be a dark and light one, which goes along with the Amish tradition. We're not talking about the Amish tradition at all tonight, but we have before and we will again. But the dark and the light is when you do half of it dark, half of it light. And then you know from past episodes of Coffee Time and Cocktail Time, when you start fooling with dark light, how many different patterns you can get by just choosing where to put the dark and where to put the light. So again, the NPS.gov, the National Park Service, writes of the log cabin quilt that the log cabin block is one of the most well-known and popular of all patchwork patterns. The pioneers traveling west, to the pioneers, it symbolized home, warmth, love, and security. The center square of the block was often done in red to represent the hearth. The focal point of the log cabin in a cabin or a home. And the name log cabin comes from the narrow strips of fabric or logs arranged around the center square, which essentially is the hearth. Each fabric strip or log was added to the pattern in much the same way logs were stacked to build a cabin. And because the straight lines and small pieces of the pattern could utilize almost any fabric scrap available, it often became the final step in the recycling of fabric. In other words, you would use that fabric for your best dress, and then it was dirty and you couldn't make it any more clean, and then it was just your day dress, and then maybe it was your house dress, and then maybe it was your daughter's dress or a helper's dress, right? Maybe you donated it to like a hospital or a mental facility, because there were lots of those then. Maybe you donated it, and maybe the very last thing that would happen to it when nobody could use it anymore was that it would be cut up and used for hooking or for quilting. And the log cabin would be a good choice because of all of the small pieces, right? Many log cabin patterns were worked on in 2 color schemes, lights and darks, divided diagonally in the middle. This represented the sun's, oh, I didn't even know this, the sun's east to west movement in the sky. As the sun rose, the light shone on the cabin, creating the light side of the block. As the sun traveled west, part of the cabin was left in the shadow, creating the dark side of the block. This is often called sunshine and shadow pattern, right? If you're doing it with the dark lights. Carol says cornerstone would be with. Oh yes, you're right. Color of the center square. Um, yeah, I think you're right. Cornerstone would be with color of the center square. Yes, you're right, and that would have cornerstones. That would make a lot more sense. Kind of the opposite, wouldn't it be? Kind of the opposite. I'm sure there is something that looks exactly like that, and it probably has a name, a different name. Um, yeah, so log cabin quilt. Let's look at some other examples of a log cabin quilt. Because just like the 9 patch, this is a pretty infinite um, design to play with. These are very flexible lines. So we just saw a light and dark. This is also a light and dark. Maybe it doesn't read as that as immediately because of the bright colors, right? Of the bright, this is more bright contemporary colors. Maybe it doesn't read as light and dark, but you can see it's light and bright, right? So it's functioning in the same way. If you squint your eyes, some of the strips are much darker than the others. But we are seeing a great mix of lights, even light florals, right? It works very well to do this configuration. And in this case, it's 4 blocks that have all been tipped inward to a center point. And so we get like a star pattern or an X pattern, right? A cross pattern. So, and if you flip them in different directions, you get something different all together. And certainly when you make these blocks, right, once you make a few of them, then it's a lot of fun to kind of fool around with them, lay them out in front of you and say, how do I want to arrange them, right? This is a variation on a log cabin block, so it is still a log cabin block, but you can see the center square, it doesn't go all the way in. The center square is like a cameo that's tipped, so it's sideways. And with this quilt pattern, the maker is really utilizing that big spot in the center, and he or she is being very careful about how that fabric piece is cut, and they're using it as a cameo to put like a picture in. And in this case, it's a piece of fabric with a polar bear on it. So cute. But this is a great way also to do the I Spy quilts for kids, where you put like a little something that has a little face, or like something in the middle. Something ends up in the middle of the square, like a little crayon or an animal or a little smiling face or a boat, a house, whatever. Oh, hey Ted, you coming to say hi? Here he comes. He coming to say hi.
Oh.
Hey, baby.
I can actually stand this time.
Here, you sit in the chair for a minute.
No,
Say hi to the buddies.
Yeah.
There he goes. He gonna say hi.
Yep. Hey guys.
You having a happy summer so far, buddy?
Yep, really.
Yeah, and I was telling them how you saw your friend Isaiah the other day at the movies.
Isaiah. I love Isaiah. I was on with him earlier.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You gonna make some more plans before he goes back?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, that'd be great.
I was also thinking a day because August wanted to have a sleepover.
He can come sleep over whenever he wants.
Yeah,
All your buddies are saying hi, Ted. I think he'll come back and visit later. So let's look at some more examples of the log cabin. I like this idea, not just for I Spies. I like the idea of creating a little frame out of the log cabin lines and putting something surprising in the middle, like a little face like that. Now, this isn't exactly light and dark, but this is 4 log cabins next to each other, and it's going to do a repeat pattern, right? So they're not tipping the squares. They're all done in the same color, so it's clear to see, but they're not tipping the squares in this case, and it's not. It's kind of a light and dark. I mean, not exactly, right? They're the ones northwest are a little bit darker, but it's not a really pronounced light and dark. But this is going to be a repeat design and done in solid color, so more in the Amish style with the solid colors. Again, one of my favorite things about quilting, and one of the things I miss the most, is when you have done a bunch of squares and then you just sit with them and turn them around and figure out what way looks the best to you. This is still a log cabin square, right? This is what most people call a wonky log cabin at this point. This is what I was talking about earlier in the show, an example of a quilt square that is new, right? Doing a log cabin this way, even though the technique is the same. Hi, Buttons. It is new. You want to come up and say hi too? But, and I'll show you how to do this. Come here. You want to say hi to everybody? You got to come say hi. You got to come say hi. Here he comes. I'll put the camera on. He gonna say hi, cause he a good boy. There he is. He a good boy. He a good. He got to do some kisses, and then he gonna go, cause he's like a little furnace, But those wonky squares are fun because, again, you can still use your scraps. Each one can be different, or you can piece them, you can use the same pattern pieces, right? And make them exactly the same and do a repeat like the example we just saw with a traditional log cabin. Or you could, isn't he so cute? Oh, I love the length of his hair right now. Oh, he's such a baby. And his tongue, he's not doing it right now, but his tongue often sticks out because his teeth have been a little bit jacked up since he was a baby. They wanted us to do stuff with his teeth. We were like, seriously? He's been perfectly happy all this time. Oh, he gonna say, he say bye. He gonna go. He gonna go. He gonna sit next to the fan. Um, Sorry, I don't know why I have to do that voice whenever I see my dog. So yeah, let me show you one more time the wonky one. So if you're drawing with me, do it now. And I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna hold it up while we do this. Just get my papers ready. There we go. I took a bunch of scraps from the printer. It's just hard to deal with them. I'm just drawing a square. You draw a square too, right? So we start here. So with the wonky log cabin, it works a little bit differently. You want straight lines, right? I mean, there are variations on log cabin that are curvy lines. You are a better quilter than I if you succeed with those kinds of patterns. The wonky square is still straight lines, but it's done in an odd way. So we want to do the frame first, as we would. Hold on, I'm just going to turn. Let me just turn this down. I think it's bright for this paper. Hold on one second. Yeah, let me just come here and do it like this. So we want to do all four sides. So something like this. You want to do unexpected. Some of them can be straight, right? But they're not what you would think. And then you have to start in the same place again. So I'm gonna. Otherwise, you'll lose the log cabin effect, right? So maybe I want to do something like this. Right? You see, it's still a log cabin, but the lines are not the same. So with the log cabin, just a reminder, I'll do a traditional now. You have to remind yourself to give room for the next one, right? Because they all feed into each other like this, right? And then you have to start where you stopped, where you started last time. Otherwise, you won't get the repeats in. Something like that, right? Whew, I think I'm going to leave the light like that. That's not bad either. Um, yeah, so that's a lot of fun. Let's look at some other examples of a log cabin because there are infinite. And if you're interested in this variation on the log cabin, remember there are a lot of books on doing what is now called the wonky log cabin. But if you look up log cabins, I think there's other books that are out there on it where they use other words, right? And because it might be like wonky is almost like a brand at this point, Um, anyway, so let's look at some more examples. Hang on, was that? Oh, you know what? I haven't been telling you where I've been getting these images. Let's go back just for a second. Just for a second. I'm so sorry. This image came from a website called A Joyful Thread. This one came from theseasonedhomemaker.com. This one came from a site called VARPS Quilting, I guess, .com. This one came from quilting.about.com. This one came from generationsquiltpatterns.com. This one came from Gigi's Thimble. This one came from SoCal Studio, SOCALSEW Studio. This one came from Create Whimsy. And do you remember they interviewed me not that long ago, Create Whimsy? So I'm subscribing to the newsletter now too, and they always have great stuff. This is also from Create Whimsy, the wonky one. I got to remember to, because it's just, I'm using images and I have to tell you where they're from, otherwise I'm really being a jerk. Now, here is our next one. Look for a pattern. Okay, curved log cabin, Carol says. Look for pattern curved log cabin. You know what, Carol, let me do that right now. I'm just going to check. Let me just check. Oops. Oh, I almost did a baddie. Let me just check on my phone real fast. We take it off airplane. I want to check curved log cabin. Doris, you're in it already. You're in the game. let me just see if I can pull this up really fast. Curved log cabin. I'd love to see variations on things. Ah, Jiminy Cricket. Yep. I'm seeing stuff like this. Right, it's probably not going to come in great with my phone, but that is cuckoo. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I see. Yes, I see. This is truly like mind bending. Wow. I see. That's something to Google later, right? Because the block must be. That's interesting. It still looks like a straight block. It's just. Ah, I see. It is a different block. It is a different block. Interesting. Because I'm thinking it's got more ends. There's more ends sticking out. How is it possible, right? It's made differently. God, they're amazing. Stuff like this, right? Looks like a Christmas wreath in the middle. That's a curved log cabin. Anyway, it's hard to see on the phone. Carol, thank you. I'm going to check those out. That'll be what I look up while I'm in bed tonight, looking up the curved log cabin and getting some ideas. So hang on here. Now, now this one, many of them can have more than one name, right? So I'm going to say to you, what is this one called? Doris says windmill. Judy, pinwheel, pinwheel. So the choices that I wrote for you are pinwheel, windmill, or whirligig, and it looks like you all are saying pinwheel or windmill. And yes, they are both correct. So this is something of a trick question, because I'm searching for this photo. Why can't there it is? It's something of a trick question because both of those are correct, and that is the case with a lot of. Oh, you have that cherry fabric. That is so cheery. The cherries are very cheery. Um, that happens a lot because just like for us in the rug hooking world, we call things different things, right? I mean, there's so many things in rug hooking that we call by different names, and even hit or miss versus mizzy mazzy, right? Even simple things like that, and it's the same with quilting. So correct answers are windmill and whirligig, and I will say of this curved log cabin, oh, they do look fabulous. Keza, something to Keza, I hope I'm saying that right. Something to think about, right? Because it didn't. The block didn't look complicated. There was just more pieces, you know. Something to think about. So of pinwheel, the text that the NPS.gov said, 19th century quilts were primarily practical. Beauty was secondary. Quilts served as window and door coverings. Hanging quilts on the dirt walls of a soddy, I don't know what a soddy is, Soddie, made them, dirt walls of a soddy, made them more home-like. Quilts could serve as privacy walls, of course, creating sleeping areas in a soddy or a one-room cabin. Quilts folded and laid on a board placed between two chairs or two tree stumps became a sofa. When a quilt became so badly worn around the edges that even rebinding could not rejuvenate it, a seamstress would cut it down to eliminate the worn areas or rework it into a child's quilt. Any quilt was too precious to discard. The importance of quilts in women's lives is best expressed in the statement of one 19th century homesteader, Lydia Roberts Dunham, who said, "I would have lost my mind if I had not had my quilts." Oh, that is such a good quote, isn't it? Oh, I'm going to have to circle that too. I really like that. I really like that. A sod house. Oh, I see, like made of sod. Oh, God. That does not sound luxurious. God, when I think, but you know, when I think about lives of people at this time, particularly people who are going west and who were already like the uncertainty aside, not knowing where you're going to settle aside, like just me in my house hunting thing. God, it took 2 years to find a place that had the right amount of village and woods, right? Imagine just being somewhere and being led somewhere, like, you know, possibly to your death, for so many people to their deaths, um, being led somewhere that you didn't even like or that didn't look familiar, didn't look like home, and then you don't have like maybe all your stuff with you. Maybe your stuff has gotten ruined. Maybe the wagon's gotten loose and it went down a mountain and stuff got ruined or lost or taken. You know, taken. Um, there's so many things. You know, it must have been I tend to think of these days as cheerless, just cheerless days of physical, incredible physical exertion, and um, and stress and uncertainty, and I think more for women in most cases than men. Just men, and I'm not being sexist here, but just being the leaders, right? Culturally, the leaders at this time, of, going out and staking, putting the stake down during that land race, and this is where we're going to live. And a woman being the sort of a secondary character. She's like not even the understudy, right? She's just like in the cast. It's like, okay, I guess this is it, and there you are, I guess, with your sod house, and you're really hoping that you have an extra quilt to put on a board over two chairs so that you also have a sofa. I mean, it's just hard to imagine these kinds of days in a time when it's such a disposable culture, when we have so much of everything. It's hard to imagine, but it's good to remember. Hard to imagine, but good to remember. So let's look at more examples of things that relate to the windmill or pinwheel. Um, Hold on, I've got a ton of pictures in this show, so we won't get to them all tonight, but I think we're going to have a quilty week. So this is how you would make the pinwheel. I'm going to stick with pinwheel for the moment. This is how you would make the pinwheel. So you can see, if you're not a quilter, how it goes together. It's only going to hold as a pinwheel / windmill quilt if you have the alternating colors. If you don't have the contrast between those two colors, then it's a beautiful quilt, but it has more of a crazy quilt feel. There's no picture. It's no longer picture driven. So you want to think about that as you put it together. Now, here is an example. This is a variation. I'm sorry, I did it again. This image is from var.msp designs. That's an Etsy store. And this image is from newquilters.com. So again, MSP Designs, Etsy. This is a variation on a pinwheel. Can you see how it's done here? It looks like there's some kind of a shift that's like, whoa, how is that happening? And it's not. What's happening is that the alternating pinwheel parts, right? And this still reads as a pinwheel, and let's get to that in a second. Look at the inner pinwheel that's smaller, right? The smaller pieces. That they are the same size as the larger pinwheel pieces, but they are two pieces pieced together. And the top piece is the background color or print. And that's why that looks smaller. So it looks like there's a pinwheel transposed over a block, and it's essentially just the same two pattern piece triangles, but the second one, the alternating one, is lopped off, right? And then using the background color, it creates this great optical illusion, right? Now, why does this work as a pinwheel when we aren't repeating colors? Why is that possible? I know you know the answer. I'm going to take a sip of my drink and give you a second to look at it and think about it, because this is a design trick that can also be used in rug hooking design or any design. The reason that this still looks like a pinwheel is because of the size difference with the alternating, let's say, blade. Because every other one is so small, is so much shorter, the four primary larger pinwheels blades stand out, and your eye is catching the shape of the blades, right? So your eye, as a sort of a trick, sees that inner second pinwheel, but it's smaller, so your eye gets there secondly. And then if you're a very geometric and technical person, your eye says, oh, there's a square back there, and it's not. It's just the alternating blades. Such little changes, just one extra seam on those four triangles, and you've got a pinwheel / windmill that looks like completely different than all the others. Now, here is what we were talking about earlier, where we are looking at the same thing, the pinwheel, but we are alternating it in what other block? What block is this actually? And the thing about it is that it is a specific quilt pattern, and I know you know because we already did it, but in alternating blocks, we are seeing mini pinwheel blocks. Interesting, because already so early in this show, we are seeing how you can, and this image comes from antiques.navigator.com. So yes, Kay, the 9 patch, exactly. So already we're just getting warmed up, and we're going to be talking about quilt blocks at least once or twice more this coming week. Just getting warmed up, and you can already see how you can do variations. We saw the variation on the log cabin, we saw the wonky, we saw the curved, we saw the variation on the pinwheel, just cutting one of those to make one of them more prominent. And now we are seeing a variation on the 9 patch, integrating our old friend the pinwheel, right? Interesting. It's like nothing new under the sun, right? We're just recycling ideas. This is a pinwheel again, and this is a great example of how with some of these blocks, I would say the one that strikes me first and most as the windmill block or the pinwheel is the middle left, the far middle left, because of the consistent dark light. Now, because that one is giving me a clue, and my eye says, oh, I get it, I know this block. When your eye travels around to the others, you can see some more than others are very hard to read. Doesn't matter if you can read it as the pinwheel block or not. Of course it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, unless you are trying to make it matter. If you want there to be high contrast, then you need consistency of color. But if you want to make your pinwheel into a sort of the equivalent of a rug hooked hit or miss, right? Then you can do all kinds of crazy colors, but it's not necessarily going to look like the pinwheel pattern. And it is a lot of fun for us to look at a variation like this. This was on Pinterest, and there was no attribution, right? How does Pinterest get away with that, by the way? It just blows my mind in this age of copyright insanity, copyright lockup, that Pinterest continues to limp along with millions of pages of unattributed work, but whatever. It was a great example, so I will say, if you look up pinwheel quilt and you check Pinterest, this is one of the first images you're going to see. And you can go down the rabbit hole, but I hit a bunch of dead links with this. It's a beautiful piece that's worth looking at, because it gives us a great example of how, if it doesn't matter to you that the lines on the blocks are super clear, then you are looking at a true thrift craft, right? Quilting old school style, just piecing the colors together. Pam, it's great to see you. Pam, I know you're a quilter. We are talking about quilt blocks, such a lot of fun. Now, another variation on the pinwheel, right? This is like what Judy was saying about the curved log cabin. This is just a curved variation on it. It's got a subtle curve, right? This kind of a curve is not impossible. You just have to be careful with your ease as you sew. Be careful as you hold it. Don't make sure that it's lined up when you start sewing, because when you sew curves, sometimes you think you're getting it perfect, and then one piece starts they don't meet, right? The seams don't meet. It's very easy to do with curves. So just check yourself 3 or 4 times, and and what a great piece to do. And I particularly love this piece because it's a combination of, again, the sort of Depression era 1930s feed sack reprints, revival fabrics, and then the newsprint or newspaper fabric. And it really struck me as so charming, because at first glance I thought, oh, somebody's making a quilt block and they put it down on the newspaper to look at it. But no, it's actually the print, right? Isn't that sweet? And it has such an early 20th century feel to it too. What's the news? Hope it's good. Really, really, really charming. But another variation on the pinwheel, right? And yet another, and that image was thequiltbarn.com. This image is Virgie May. This is a blog spot, VIRGIEMAE. Believe it or not, this is another variation on pinwheel windmill. And is it exactly the same? No. Is it made with the same triangle pieces? No. But it gives you the same effect, right? This is just straight pieces. In terms of the way it's constructed, its closest relative is more like the log cabin than the pinwheel, because the pinwheel is a triangle driven block. This is not. These are strips, but you can see how the overall effect, the impact of it is it looks like a pinwheel, right? So interesting how you can fool. You can create new blocks. You can create variations on old blocks. But isn't it interesting to know whatever the language is, whatever you call this block, right? If you call it a pinwheel and you put it up on a quilting site, someone will say, well, it looks like a pinwheel and it's a very cool piece, but that's not actually a pinwheel block. And that would be fair enough because the pinwheel block slash windmill is finite, right? That block has been there since the early 20th century. So we know that that block exists as a rectangle based pattern. But for funsies, right, just for fun, this could be something really fun to do to give you kind of a stylized version of a pinwheel quilt. And why not, right? Why not? So moving on to our next quilt block, I will ask you, what do you think the name of this block is? Is it North Star, Saw Blade, or Eight Pointed Star? I'm going to take, and you take a look at it and take your time. I'm going to take another sip of my blue monster here. I love these episodes where we interact like this. Doris says 8-point star. Yes, it is. I'm waiting for some more answers because 8-point star. Yes, it is. Well done. Lots of 8-point stars. I will say that this one is another kind of trick because, right, regionally, the language has shifted a lot. This can also be known as the saw blade. So in some parts of the country, for some people, even within a family, some people will refer to this pattern as saw blade. That's just an FYI. But I'm going to refer to it as its more common name, which is 8-pointed star. So the 8-pointed star, according to the WPS.gov, wrote, stars are probably the most common motif used on quilts. Homesteaders traveling west used the stars for guidance, and they looked upon stars as religious symbols of their faith in God. There are hundreds of star patterns. Some quilts have just one large radiating star, often called the Star of Bethlehem or a blazing star, while in other quilts, dozens of similar stars are used. The simplest and most popular star pattern is called the 8-pointed star. A star pattern is not an easy design to cut or sew. Precision is extremely important, as any inaccuracy in cutting or piecing is multiplied as pieces are added. And if you're looking at that image, you're thinking, oh yeah, I can see how that would, domino effect. If poorly pieced, the quilt will not lie flat when it's finished. An intricate star pattern was one way for women to show their needlework skills. Many times the quilt maker deliberately sewed a mistake somewhere in the quilt. It is thought by some that this reflected the maker's faith in God, for only God can make a perfect thing. Isn't that beautiful? So 8-pointed star. And Karen says, I would have said saw blade, but wondering if that's more popular out here in the West. Probably, Karen. Probably. And Pam says, Lemoyne star. Ooh, Lemoyne star. Pam, is that another word for this one, or is that another star pattern? I don't know that one at all. Ooh. See, isn't this fun? And again, if you are a rug hooker and you're not interested in hooking at all, the colors and the ideas and the patterns and the stories behind the patterns must appeal, right? Because we are hookers, right? We love a good yarn. We love the story behind the story. And quilts, just like hooking, there's so many stories to be had here. So let's look at some this image is from Mountain Quilt Shop. This image is from 10cowquilts.com. This is a variation on the block we're talking about. Again, I'm just going to refer to it for simplicity as the 8-pointed star. Pam says, I think it's the same. I've only done it one time a long time ago. It's so great to know all these variations. And one of the frustrating things about for me researching quilts online to put this show together is that when you pull up a block, I'm going to go with never. I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions, but there were When I pulled up an 8-pointed star, I didn't find any sites that would say, otherwise known as a Lemoyne star or um, the saw blade. And it would be nice. I mean, if somebody knows of a periodical or a website where this information is synthesized so that you can look at it and say, okay, I thought we were talking about apples and apples. I thought I was going crazy there. Because it's like, you want to know if it's the same thing or if we're just repeating, right? Because I almost showed you a saw blade later in the episode, and I went, that looks like the 8-pointed star. And then I looked up. I said to Google, is the 8-pointed star the same as the saw blade? And the answer was yes, that it was like a regional difference in language. And Pam says 4 stars and half triangle blocks, 8 points. Interesting. Okay, let's come back and look at it again. So again, this image that we're looking at, still the same block, but how different it looks with more sort of contemporary colors, right? I'm not always a fan of contemporary colors, but this is beautiful. I love the nice bright colors, like little primary. It looks almost like a color wheel. Doesn't it look like a color wheel? And there's some alternating going on here, which is different. Just come back with me to the mountain quilt shop example, right? So you can see the way it's made. There's a square in the middle, and almost like this, like a pinwheel. It's 8 pieces, so it's 4 squares that are each made of 2 pieces, right? And then it goes out to the border, and you can see it's still squares. This is a 16 square block, the way that it is in this example, right? So not a 9 patch, but a 16. That's the only way this one is going to work. And you can see how the shape of the star gets its shape from the negative space, right? In this case, the white, right? So it still halvesies. Every square is either, the 4 cornerstones are solid squares, but every other square is halvesies. And then it's just a question of how, just like with the log cabin quilt, how do I want to break down the colors, right? Because they can look like that, or they can look like this, right? Interesting, isn't it? And Karen says, the Mormon train out west would be another great resource. Ooh. Oh, is it the Mormon Trail out west? I bet that would be. Oh, Doris said, Google, the Lemoyne, oh, thanks, Doris. The Lemoyne star, and I hope I'm saying that right, sets itself apart from other 8-point star patterns by using diamonds for each of its points, whereas others are typically constructed with half-square triangles. This is interesting, Doris. Thank you for that, because so at the end of the day, I'm learning as we go too. This is the same deal with saw blade, right? So I'm going to say what we are looking at. Okay, so based on that information, Doris, um, the thing about the saw blade that I noticed in all of the examples that I saw was that the center was a square. So the 9 or the 4, let me see how many patches. Let's look at the first example because it's easier to see how the pattern pieces shake out. In the examples of saw blade I saw, okay, so in the center, 4 blocks that are each split in half, all of the saw blades I saw, that was solid. So what you're describing, the Lemoyne square, it is the same pieces but in a different configuration. So interesting, like really, isn't that interesting? Because that says to me that we have got a Russian nesting doll of language here, because I'm sure it's not just the case with the 8-pointed star. I'm sure it's the case with many traditional quilt blocks and maybe even contemporary ones, that you do them in a different configuration, and now we're talking about a different block. It has to be, because how many, when I think about it, how many choices can you have in one block, right? I mean, hundreds, maybe thousands, but not millions, right? So interesting. That's very good information. And Pam says this one isn't 4 squares. This one you're showing is now is diamonds. Interesting. Yes. Okay. And this one here too. Let me come here. You're right, Pam. You're right. This one is diamonds. You are so right. Okay. So this is probably the Lemoyne, right? Do you think this is the Lemoyne? I think this is the Lemoyne. And then, I don't know, are we allowed to say this is a variation on the 8 block? Or do we say this is a completely different square? Pam, you are good. Doris, you are good. Thank you so much. And Carol says, done homemade with square and half square triangles. Okay, yes. So I get where you all are coming from now. Now, my eye is looking at this, And Ruth says made with half square triangles. Yep. And Carol says center is 4 half square triangles. Okay, so probably this one, right? Center is 4 half square triangles. I'm already confused, right? This is why I'm not a good hooker. This one is all diamonds, right? This one is all diamonds. This one has no, for the star part, there are no triangles, right? This one is just diamonds, and just the border is all triangles, right? This is so interesting. Pam says, my Lemoyne pattern was 4 center half triangle squares, and only the 4 corners of a Lemoyne are a full square. Okay, I see. So in this case, they've split the corners too. But the 4 corners, right, in this case are split. But Pam says in hers, they were solid. Now, that again would be a different pattern. I mean, does anybody know how this works? Like, is this why there's so many names of quilt patterns? Because you make a little change, like the one we're talking about where Pam says her, like, cornerstones were solid. Otherwise, it's the same pattern with all diamonds and then just triangles around the edge with the exception of the corners. Is that how it's done? I never thought about it like that. This is really interesting. I'm loving this. Let's make this even more confusing in a fun way by looking at another variation. So this image is from Ramblin' Threads. This is a blog. And you know what? I think we are looking at another Lemoyne, right? And in this case, the corners are the same color, but the whole background is the same color. But you're right. Again, it is an 8-pointed star, but it's not done the same dang way. This is incredible. This is all diamonds. Now I'm just thinking to myself, okay, so if you were going to make that, let's just look at the bottom left corner, so southwest, and let's just look at the pink part. So if you see, the pink part has 2 white triangles attached to it. I suppose if I were sewing this and no one was giving me any instruction, I suppose I would cut out the pink diamond, and then I would sew on one of the, probably the one on the left, right? Definitely the one on the left, the small triangle, and then along the bottom, they have seam allowance on the left-hand side, right? They have seam allowance. Otherwise, I think that the point would go right to the edge of the next block. But you're seeing how with that pink example, that's actually 3 pieces making that one segment, right? So if there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. Why am I counting them? The thing is called the 8-pointed star. With 3 pieces, this has 24 pieces in it with this variation. Interesting. Yes, Ruth says yes. There are so many kinds, so many variations. Carol says both of them. You can break both down, take your grid and draw it. Both have 16 squares. This is incredible. So with a piece like this, like you could do this variation with the diamonds. You could do it as squares, right? Just to make it easier for yourself. So you would sew it differently because the pieces are different. But I mean, in my mind, it would be a lot easier to do it with the squares. I mean, that's just me. Let's look at another. I think I have one more variation. Yep, there's another variation. This is thimblesandneedles.au. So an Australian website. Carol says, yes, it's a rectangle. So it's a rectangle that is split. Wow. Pam says, yes, this could all be squares. Okay. Yep. I can see it that way. Because, I mean, this isn't an impossible thing to sew, but it's reminding me of the compass rose or one of these that has lots of points. And if you're a beginner quilter, and I still consider myself a beginner quilter, it could be a trickier one, right? This is a trickier one. And it said it in the introduction. It said this can be a tricky pattern piece. And so women, to show their stitching, their quilting prowess, would do this one kind of to show off. And we get it now because we've been dissecting it, for a while. Pam, I missed your comment that said, I think maybe names were given regionally. And Carol says this one, this variation put into a pinwheel. Ah, I get it. I see the pinwheel too. Do y'all see the pinwheel too? It's just pinwheel, but with the addition with a different breakdown of the shapes. Pam says, I find points easier to do if done with English paper piecing. You don't lose your points. So Pam, when you do this, I know I've asked this before, but I have to ask because I'm just still not sure. When you do it, when you do something like this, Kirsten, great to see you. Happy Friday. Pam, when you do this with English paper piecing, do you have the piece of paper in, for example, a diamond shape when you're sewing around it, and then do you take the piece of paper out? I know I've asked that before because I still don't understand it. I should watch a tutorial on paper piecing because it all just seems. And one of the girls at my church, she does paper piecing. And she sits at the back, and I normally sit in the second row. Teacher's pet, right? Being a loser way up front. She sits in the back, and sometimes when I walk by her, she's doing this super intricate hand sewn paper piece quilt with such detail. There and Judy says there are so many piecing techniques. Okay, interesting. This is fun. This is fun to think about. So another one, right? I have quite a few for each one, and we'll know when it's a different pattern. So this is I'm a quilt. I am a quilt on bastings.blog. So this is a blog site. I'm a quilt on bastings blog site. So again, now I'm looking at this with new eyes. Oh, I see. There's paper piecing, and then there's English paper. Okay. Okay. I think I'm going to go down the rabbit hole. Some of these conversations that we're having tonight would be great things to write an article for Magpie about. Like, for real. I mean, some of these would be so good to have some of these conversations because even if you've done quilting before, as I have, I mean, I did mostly applique quilting. Um, this stuff is really interesting to me, and I don't know a lot about it. I'd love to learn more. And Ruth says, oh, the comment went away. I lost the comment. Judy says, okay, so this one, again, it's an 8-pointed star, but again, it looks like the variation that we are sort of referring to for the moment as a Lemoyne. And whether or not that's right or not, it certainly is an 8. I mean, I know it's right, Pam, but whether I should be saying 8-pointed star or not, I'm just not sure. But I do love this variation. I do love the machine quilting that we're seeing in the background, really whimsical. And I love that each of the diamonds to make up these stars is a different um, pattern, right? A different piece of material. Looks really fun, doesn't it? And those nice kind of ice cream colors in the background. Really fun. Isn't it funny? Look at the center square with the 4 squares made up, so that will be like an intersection throughout the quilt. Isn't it crazy how when you look at that center square, almost like an optical illusion, it is so pronounced. Like the square line is so strong. And I get what they're saying here, that if you don't line it up perfectly, it's going to lose something, right? Because those square lines are amazingly sharp. Pam says, yes, I based my papers in the fabric. Oh, you based them in the fabric. I'm sending you mine while I'm working on that I'm working on now for Magpie. Okay, great. I'm going to open up my thing so when I get it, I can share it. And good. Let's see. I opened both on my Facebook and my Gmail. I love this variation. And again, this would be great for if you have scraps, right? If you're doing a real thrifty scrap quilt, this would be a great choice. And just solids for the background. It's really striking, isn't it? Let me see if I have any more. See the 8-pointed star. Okay, I do. So these are, I put this picture in, and now that we've had this conversation and you've been educating me, okay, so Ruth is saying, I haven't tried English paper piecing yet. I put this one in just because I was trying to get my head around it, and I was thinking, okay, so if you, just quilters, help me with this. If you made this 8-pointed star with the diamonds, how do you get the negative area in it? Is it just fiddly? Is the answer like you just sew it, but it's fiddly? I mean, what would you all do? Would you create one-piece triangles to fit in all of the? I mean, I know it probably connects to other stuff, and you want square corners, but it looks to me like once you've done this, it's going to be really tricky to get the negative space to attach to it? Is it just a lot of fiddly folding and stuff? Is that how it's done? Because when I look at this, I think, oh man, I would not want, I would not want the If I saw these at it's fiddle, they call it a Y seam. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. A Y seam because it makes the letter Y. You've got like that negative space V that connects down to the stick, right? And it makes the Y. Okay, that's great, Judy. Thank you. I saw that. I saw that on something. In fact, this by the way is from eBay, and it's a quilt pieces that have already sold, but it came up in my search. Now, Judy, it's funny that you say that because this one, this image is from a site that is, I think it's a blog, and it's called Squash House Quilts, and the tutorial, it's a tutorial, is called No Y Seam. So, and I thought, well, what the hell is that? Now you just explained it to me, and I know what that. I get what that is now. No Y seam. But does this have a Y seam? Doesn't this have a Y seam? I'm very confused. Maybe this is an in-person conversation. This is like light is not dawning on marble skull in my case. I'm so confused. Hold on one second. Yeah, this tutorial is called No Y Seam Squash House Quilts. Interesting. Carol says these look like they planned on applique. Oh, so this one. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Not this one, but this one looks like they. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, that would be a great way of going. That would be for me like. I was going to say lazy man's, but it's not lazy, is it? Because you've already sewn an 8-point star. Putting it applique style onto backing, that would be for me. That would be my pick. Just to control it a little bit better. Yes, Judy says this is what I mean by different ways of piecing. Yeah, this is so exciting. I'm really enjoying this. This is so exciting. So, okay, we went very far with this, didn't we? I mean, this conversation, I mean, we're not done yet, but this conversation took us to all kinds of places. I think the next image, let me hold here. Okay, so Pam says just sent it. Let me check. And yep, I got it. Let me come back to you here before we go to the next one. Pam says, oh, there's no picture there. This is all hand sewn paper piece. I can't find a photo of my star. Points are sharp though. See the small diamonds. Pam, send the picture when you get a chance. I do that all the time. Let me see. The little pile. Oh, I'm so enjoying this. I'm getting like really excited. Don't let me start with quilting or I will never get anything. That's okay, Pam. If you know me and you do, everything I send it first with an email that says see the attachments, and then I do it every time I send anything. I don't get any better at stuff like that. This is so interesting, but don't let me get going on quilting because we'll never get anything done. This has given me such great ideas for more designs and some more hand-painted canvases and some crossover stuff. And oh, I'm loving this conversation. So we'll come back here, and I know Pam's going to send us that image so we can look at that together. But let's come back over here to our next challenge question. So far, everybody has 100, right? So far, and don't be worried about putting an answer in ever and having it be wrong, right? Because you can see I learn as I go, right? That's how we learn best, and that's how it's the most fun is when we learn from each other. So don't hesitate about putting a guess in. Judy, the last image. Okay, wait a minute. Judy says the last image. The points could be rectangles and then sew a square background on a diagonal flip and trim. I see what you mean. By rectangles. Okay, now I get it. I'm just going to read it one more time to drive the point home. The points could be rectangles and then sew a square background on the diagonal, flip and trim. Judy, I got it. I can visualize that. Sometimes it's like, what are you doing? No, I'm good.
Okay.
Maybe put the overhead light on though. I feel like it's Stephen King times. Judy, that did it. You know how sometimes someone I'm very good at abstract pattern making. That's why I did costume making instead of design, because my brain works like that. But sometimes it's the words are in the wrong order, or I'm just not present enough. You know what I mean? You just said the right words in the right order, and my brain went, okay, I get it, the rectangle, and then I get the flip. And a lot of the books I have that I've never used that are quilting books are like sew or stitch and flip. And that's what they mean, isn't it? Teddy, just so you know, if you blow up the bathroom, we might be able to hear it. Okay. Yep, just making sure. We don't need a sideshow. Um, that's really interesting. Yeah, that did it for me. Thank you so much. Now, this next one is a tricky one for sure. Let's do this together. So, this example here, not this one, sorry, this one, and this image is from the National Park Service.gov. Oh, before we do it, let's see this one through. Hold on one second. Okay, there we go. Um, Pam, it says, this message seems dangerous. How stupid is Google? I'm going to do looks safe to me. Okay, so let's see. Oh, yes, I remember you working on this. You nut. Look at this. This is the piece you're working on for Magpie. I have seen this, and this is insane. Absolutely incredible. This is going to be a feature in the next Magpie, the fall Magpie. By the way, I still have in stock here a handful more of the summer Magpie, and of course I sign everything I send out just in case it's meaningful, with a heart and everything, you know. So I have some in stock here. Otherwise, they're always out on Amazon. And if you are in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, Europe, anywhere else, don't get them from American Amazon. Get them from your Amazon, so that there's like no shipping if you have Prime, right? So the piece that I was just showing you, Pam said this is all hand sewn, paper pieced. I can't find a photo of my star. Points are sharp though. See the small diamonds. That is a really intricate piece. I think we peeked at it on a gallery night too. But we're going to see the whole reveal in the next Magpie, and I can't wait. That is and it is such a romantic piece. It just has such an old-fashioned vibe to it. I think it's such a beautiful piece. Karen says, and Becky says, wow, Pam, that's beautiful. April says, beautiful work. And Karen says, I've always wanted to make a Civil War era sampler quilt and even have the fabric. Has anyone else made one? I know just what you mean. That seems like such a charming project. Um, I love that idea. There are a lot. I have some sampler patterns for Civil War era, both geometric patterns and like more Baltimore album, like figural patterns with like the generals and all of the people who are big players in the war. Um, it's so appealing to me too. I remember the first thing, and I wish I could have shown it to you. I wish I had it to show to you. It is of all of the things I've lost over the years, it is my biggest heartbreak. That in my lava cameo. But this is my biggest heartbreak, right? When I was in college, when I was an undergrad in London, and I was doing the costume construction degree, I was a big quilter in those days. And Patchwork Place, right? They went out of business, I think, last year. Patchwork Place was my life. I had my mother forward the Patchwork Place catalogs. They were like, sort of small, like almost paperback size. She would forward them to me in part of a care package because I could not live without them. And they were pretty much the same from one issue to the next. They would have like the Depression era stuff, and then they would have the Civil War stuff. And then can you remember? Then there would be new collections, or they would put, new lines that they would put together, and different designers. And man, that is one of the formative things in my life, looking at that Patchwork Place catalog. And they had kits, they had fabric, they had kits, they had tools, they had everything. And I had my mom order me and send me a Civil War block this is what it looked like. It was absolutely beautiful. I'm sure it's probably on eBay now. Love to order it and do it again, because I made it. I made all the blocks, and then I was busy with school. I mean, I was living in another country. I worked 2 jobs. I worked in 2 different pubs, and I was at school. It was horrible. Um, and I made the blocks, and somehow they got lost. And I don't remember ever even seeing them since I got back to the U.S. It was an applique block, and it looks something like this. Let me see if I can draw it. Just It was like an antebellum. I did it too. I did it too puffy. It was an antebellum block. Hold on one second. And it looked like something like this, right? The basic block. And I made it a bit too puffy, but you know, it's a bit more. I made it like restoration, but it's more like this, right? And then it came with the Civil War fabrics, all obviously replica fabrics, and it showed you variations. So, for example, you could do like cap sleeves like that if you wanted to, or you could do like a longer sleeve like that. But it had some variations. It was also like you could do something like that, or you could do that, and you could do different things. But I think I did just the basic skirt for all of them. And the way the pattern showed you to do it, and you could do different necklines, I think, if memory serves, and it gave you a piece of fabric, right? And it told you to bunch the fabric up. So it was already a cut shaped piece, right, in the kit. And when you bunched it up, it made it really three-dimensional. So it gathered around the waist. And man, these were so pretty. Every square had a different background, different material for the dress. It was like, ah, it was such a dream. It was such a dream. That is the number one thing in my life that I'm so sad that I have no idea when I lost it and where it might have gone. But all of these international moves over the years too. But maybe some of you have seen that pattern. It's what it reminded me of. And just a reminder that if some of this stuff feels nostalgic for you too, just remember, you know, a lot of this stuff is on eBay. The very things we're talking about, a lot of the stuff is on eBay, right? Let me catch up with our things. Um, okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm just following your conversation. Yep. Carol says elongated hexagon. Okay. Uh, I get that. Pam says English paper piece. Yes, Carol. Elongated hex. Okay. That makes perfect sense. Ruth says we got our Magpie Times today. Fantastic. I hope you and Richard love looking at it. Great. You know, and some of you say, should I get it from you or should I get it from Amazon? It doesn't really matter. I make a little more when you get it from me, but it's also great when you get it from Amazon. And you know why? Because when you get it from Amazon or when you have it in your cart or whatever, it boosts the algorithm, stupid algorithms, but it boosts it. So then the next person going in who's never heard of us or maybe even rug hooking, maybe they're looking for fiber arts, whatever. If you all have been in there looking at Magpie Times and buying Magpie Times, then it shoots to the top of the list, and then new people find it, and then new people find rug hooking. So either way, it's great, and thank you so much for getting it. I appreciate it, and I hope that you love this issue. And Carol says this pattern, this block is great for fussy cutting. And Pam says the Civil War quilt patterns are so beautiful. They are exactly comforting and warming. That's exactly what they are. They have so much heart. And for me, the Civil War stuff, it's just, it has like, it always carries a little bit of pain, you know? There's always this little melancholy, bittersweet kind of dark side when I look at fabrics, designs, and art from that era, because I think what a time of incredible loss, right? So it always makes me a little shadow, right, crosses my brain when I even hear the word Civil War. But they're cozy, they're beautiful, it brings me back to penny rugs too, right? Same era. They are comforting and warming, and it's great to keep talking about them and the beautiful designs, you know. And it's funny because we would have calico designs soon, and they are small prints, right, like Civil War designs for the most part. But somehow I love calicos, but Civil War prints are, even the small florals and the small geometrics. There's just something extra about Civil War designs. There's such class, right? I don't know what it is, but they're definitely my taste too. Carol says, Google patchwork of crosses, Lucy Boston. Google patchwork of crosses, Lucy Boston. Yes, Carol, it's a Lucy Boston, Potc. Lucy Boston, I love that name. She sounds like she stepped off the Mayflower. Let's see, Lucy Boston quilt. Oh, okay. Okay, wait a minute. Yep, okay. Why is it not showing me? Okay, Lucy Boston, her life, her legacy, her patchwork. Lucy Boston. This is Tales of Cloth that I just pulled up. Her life, her patchwork, and her legacy of design. Oh, interesting. Who is Lucy Boston? Lucy, a war nurse. Oh my God. A single mother, a painter, a home restorationist, a gardener, an author, a music aficionado, a patchwork enthusiast. Lucy Boston was an artist in everything she did. She left her English studies at the University of Oxford at the beginning of World War I and became a war nurse. After the war ended, she eventually married and divorced, traveling Europe to study art with her son Peter. Oh my God. Okay, you all have to go on this website. There's also a picture of Lucy. Thank you for writing Lucy Boston in there. I know I've heard the name, and I've not even gone this far with the rabbit hole. Shame on me. Um, okay, we need to investigate. It talks all about her life on this site. This site, Tales. Okay, wait a minute. Talesofcloth.com. That's what I was reading anyway. But I think anything Lucy Boston. Thank you. Thank you for that reference. I'm going to really enjoy my bedtime tonight more than usual. Okay. Oh, Pam, you sent another pic. Okay, let me see. Is it the? Let's see. Um, this is fun when it's. Oh, I love it when it's interactive like this. This one is called Southern Belle. So this is really similar to what I was just describing. Pam sent this pattern piece. So this is different than the one I'm thinking of, but there are actually a ton. And Patchwork Place put out a ton of these. So Patchwork Place, I think also, this must be a different one, and you can see the bottom of it is like either like a wedding ring, right, with all the different lines in it is like a wedding ring, or Dresden, is that Dresden plate? Um, Patchwork Place did this type of quilt for many different eras. The 1920s, the Civil War. I think there were even more contemporary ones, but there were several to choose from. So that's something to think about too. So good. Um, okay, let's see. Karen says, what a wonderful addition and transition from your dress design um, you created from the die samples. Oh, that's right, right. The little swatches. That's right, Karen. Yeah, that definitely looks like what we're talking about. Absolutely does. Pam says, my quilt is adapted from her patchwork quilt of the crosses quilt. Oh, Lucy Boston. Okay, I'm getting the connection now. Sharon, late tonight. Welcome. Welcome to a super busy episode. We've been just going back and forth all night talking about quilts, quilt blocks, the history. Oh, I'm having so much fun tonight. Can't wait to go back and watch from the beginning. Oh, it's going to be a good one. Carol says, wait till you see her quilts, patchworks and crosses. I can't wait. I can't wait. Let me see one more, and then we'll move on to our next thing. I'm sorry. I have to be in the fun too. Quilt crosses. Let me see if I can pull it up this way. This is, okay, so Pam, it's all coming back to me now. Yes, this is the quilt that Pam is doing. I get it. So this is the inspiration. Wow. That's the Lucy Boston. Pam, I get it. I get it. Sometimes I'm so brain dead. Yes, I get the connection. And I even remember saying, I can't believe that you're doing that. This is such a complicated, and talk about variation of squares. All of these squares are the same size, right? But they're all different in the center. God, and just a reminder, this could be a rug too, right? This could also be this could be a great utilitarian rug. Oh, that was your Southern Belle, Pam. My Southern Belle was paper pieced, oh my God, by your grandmother over 50 years ago. So yes, it's a Dresden. Pam, if you can get a picture of that into Magpie for the gallery, that would be great, your grandma's piece. And yes, it's Dresden plate skirt. She embellished with ribbon, lace, and tatting. Oh, I bet she did. Just like, when you see those dolls, I don't know whether people got them in a kit or they got them in a newspaper, but they cut them out of paper like cardboard and sometimes painted a face or wrote with pen with the face. And they're called ribbon dolls. And then put just like a paper doll. They're always in silhouette. Do you know the ones I mean? They always had a bonnet, not like a Sunbonnet Sue, more like an older character. and each one is different with different fabric to make the bonnet and to make the dress, and all of the ribbons and all the little trims that were left over. You could use you could use to make one of those. Pam says Lucy Boston fussy cut hers. Wow. Wow, the Lucy Boston with the crosses quilt sounds like um, Guernsey, Caswell carpet, Guernsey. Why am I blanking on the first name? The Caswell carpet, something Guernsey. It's the first name that's easy. Why am I not? I know you'll get me there, but it reminds me of the equivalent of that, like a young woman or a, a female sitting there with this complicated project in front of her, and yeah, making it work. God, this is so exciting. Oh, that was your grandma's. That is so sweet. So, okay, hey, here we are. Listen, this will be the last one we do for today, but I'm going to do this again tomorrow. So when I come back to you tomorrow for coffee time, we'll be doing some more of this. And if I'm able to come to you in the middle of the week for another short episode, Zarua, thank you, Pam. Thank you. That was driving me nuts. We'll do this definitely on Monday. We'll see if we can come back and do. I'd like to do a couple more episodes at least on quilting and quilting patterns, because I think it encourages great conversation, great design ideas, possible designs that you can be working on no matter what fiber art you are doing. So my question for you, and this is a tough one, I'm going to ask you what square this is, and I will give you multiple choices again. Do you know whether this is hardest one for last, for tonight anyway, Bridal Rose, Rose of Sharon, or Tudor Rose? This is a tough one. Judy says Baltimore album style applique Rose of Sharon. Yes, you are right. You are right. And because I made up the other two, Tudor Rose and Bridal Rose, I made those up. And the thing about this, and you're gonna see this as we look. Let me first read you what the National Park Service says about this square on the quilt trail. It says, Rose of Sharon, one of the oldest applique quilt patterns, is the Rose of Sharon. The Rose of Sharon mentioned in the Bible might actually refer to the wild tulip that grows today on the plains of Sharon in Palestine. Very relevant. When the Bible was translated into English, the word rose was used in place of the word tulip. During the 1800s, there was a custom for a young girl to make a baker's dozen of quilt tops before she became engaged. God, that's a tall order. This collection consisted of 12 utility quilts and one great quilt, which was pieced or appliqued as a showpiece for a bed. This is so sweet, isn't it? The Rose of Sharon was often used for the great quilt. Many young women traveled west as brides. Their great quilt folded safely in a trunk. Well done, you all, on the guessing, by the way. Well, you're not guessing, you know. The Whig Rose, that's Whig like the WH, the British political party. The Whig Rose is another name for this pattern. It is thought the name came from the 1828 presidential election. The newly formed Whig Party hoped to beat out Democrat Andrew Jackson. The Whig Party dissolved in the mid-1800s, but the pattern name lived on. In other words, this is another tricky one because it's more commonly known as the Rose of Sharon, but it's also known as the Whig Rose. And what's really tricky about this rose is it appears in so many different design configurations. So Pam says, Rose of Sharon blossoms on the Rose of Sharon bush looks more like tulips than they do roses. Oh, interesting. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So there's all around been a lot of confusion with this pattern piece over the years, with this pattern block. So you see how different this one is from the last one, but this is still referred to as a Rose of Sharon block. This comes from Pinterest. Again, no attribution. Sorry about that. This is another one that is attributed by Ruth Mumsey, that's the artist, as the Rose of Sharon. So I don't know the answer. I'm putting it out there and I'm brainstorming with you. What makes it a Rose of Sharon? Because at first I thought, that do there have to be 4 roses, or does it have to be just does it have to cover 4 corners? Do there have to be 4 roses? Because this breaks from the others because we're seeing a central rose with 4 buds. completely different. I'm guessing one of the traits of this rose is that it is an applique style rose. Because to me, honestly, this looks more like Hawaiian, like a Teveve design than it does a Rose of Sharon. But there, if you Google Rose of Sharon, you will find stuff like this. This is by Quilted Expressions. This is a pattern that's called Rose of Sharon. This is, I guess, this is like akin to it's an applique quilt. I wouldn't say this is a Baltimore album applique quilt. This doesn't look anything like the ones we were just looking at, creating some confusion. This is a book called Rose of Sharon, New Quilts from an Old Favorite. I don't have this book. And I would be curious to know if there is text in this book. In the introduction, maybe that part is viewable on Amazon. I'm curious to know whether they wrote something about if you're going to create variations on an old favorite. I wonder if they first define the old favorite and say, well, a Rose of Sharon must include, you know what I mean? Because this, again, is a real departure from what I would think a Rose of Sharon looks like. Another book, right? This to me is more familiar. So this Sharon Peterson book, and this was published by Patchwork Place, the Rose of Sharon block book, winning designs from the EQ6 challenge. And yes, there are the triangles around the edge that make a beautiful border, and it's beautifully pieced together with sort of colorful or batik fabric in between. But to me, this is what I would think of if I was thinking about a Rose of Sharon, like a Baltimore album style quilt. To me, some of these, they don't all look like Rose of Sharon to me, but I guess they are, right? I mean, Sharon wrote the book on it. Pam says, I think maybe because they are applique quilts with the central floral motif. You know, Pam, I think that's it. I think that's as far as we can go with defining it. We don't have to define it. It's, for me, for my peace of mind, it's like, well, what does it look like? I think you're absolutely right. It's an applique block, and it has a floral or specifically rose motif. And I think if that is the only sort of outline to what a Rose of Sharon is, it's very broad, you know. Um, and incidentally, I'm not attributing these past slides because you can see what they are. They're patterns in their books, and you can see this is Anita Good Design. You can see, you know, the attributions and where you can find them if you're interested. Ruth said, I can see how some of these quilt patterns could make good rug hooking patterns. Absolutely, right? Absolutely. So there's so, oh, no, no, no. Uh-oh, you didn't see that, right? That's where we're going to start tomorrow. So, yeah, we got pretty far tonight, all things considered. I knew I was going to kind of drag on this episode because I wanted to chat and I wanted to learn more. And so many of you are much bigger quilters than I am, so it's a lot of fun to do this and to talk with you about this stuff. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to look at some more and do a little more trivia with more quilt squares. And in the meantime, behind me today, and this is not up yet, but I will put this up later, is so this is the Flying Geese design is one of the famous blocks, right? One of the famous early blocks. But there is a newer block that is called Wild Goose Chase, and you might see it tomorrow. But this is a variation on that. It's the triangles that are a play on the Wild Goose quilt block. So that one I will put up maybe later tonight for you to do. And the sheep of the earth, the bird of the sky, and the fish of the sea. Those are the challenge ones. But the others are just quilt related for a new conversation we're having, right? So I sort of launched yesterday this idea of ribbon candy paintbox, where I'm painting the backings of the patterns, so you can do them in whatever materials you want, or just part of them if you want. They are very opaque, right? And there's no fabric showing. So if you only want to do part of it, whether you're stitching it or hooking it or whatever, or punching it, whatever, well, not punching it. If you're punching it, you won't be able to leave any of the background showing. But I'm setting up the quilt series, and then I've got the challenge series that are the 3 animals. So yeah, I'm going to do these as often as I can, and I'm going to put out several more quilt themed paintbox items, right? Paintbox patterns, and each one is original and hand painting. And I'm trying to do them as I did one of each so far, and they went slow because I was figuring it out. But now, as I do more, I'll be a little bit faster. And they will always come to you on white door mail linen, right? So you know it's a quality thing. And I think they look really quality close up. Oh, it's the green screen. Sorry about that. Green screen's playing around. So that's there for you. And I'm gonna work. I'm gonna eat, and I'm gonna work on a little bit more quilt stuff now. And I gotta work on a couple of orders tonight. But I will see you tomorrow morning at coffee time at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will have more quilt blocks for you to guess their names, and we'll do a little bit more with this commentary. And I'm really looking forward to that already tomorrow morning on coffee time. I will see you then, everybody. Have a great night. Take care.